I said I'm ready. No, you can just edit that out later, Kevin. Hey, welcome to Theotek tonight. And my name is Rick Mansfield, and I'm talking to you because Kevin gargles every time that he speaks. But go ahead, say hello to us, Kevin, and we'll get an example of why I'm beginning the show tonight and you're not.
Hello to us, Kevin.
Yeah, see, there you go. All right.
That's
All right, that's the last thing we'll hear from you. Yeah.
Hey, thanks
All right, and
for coming. We'll see you.
Yeah. We also have Antoine Wright. How are you tonight, Antoine?
Doing well, doing well.
All right. Eagle Rock, it says on your sweatshirt there, on your hoodie.
Yeah.
What's Eagle Rock?
Camp. That's a YMCA camp I used to be a counselor for.
Ah,
You should
gotcha.
say Fraggle Rock.
Gotcha. Fraggle Rock, yeah, that's
down in
at
Fraggle Rock. Boom.
All right, and that was LaRosa Johnson. How are you tonight, LaRosa?
Doing well. A little tired. Went for my first run of the year. Now that it's finally warm enough to actually go outside with shorts on.
That's kind of, for the rest of us, that's kind of like you're telling us, hey, I'm running and you're not.
No, it's more like, hey, it's finally warm in Spokane.
Yeah, it's been warm here the last couple of days here in Kentucky too, and I want to get back to. I'm satisfied just in walking, but I do want to get back to that. And but as I was telling you guys earlier, there was a time when I could run a 13-minute mile. Think about that for a while. All right, and we also have Wes Allen. How are you tonight, Wes? Where have you been jogging lately?
I've been walking, been doing a lot of walking because it has been warm out. It's spring, and I've been out doing photo walks. So that's how I get my exercise.
Gotcha. Spring is here. Spring is official.
Yes.
All right. Well, with springtime comes sitting outside reading digital text. Well, maybe not quite exact, but that was my poor attempt at transition. And so tonight, what we're talking about is the idea of a digital library. And should you do that? Could you do that? And certainly you could, but there are all kinds of options out there. Obviously, there's options like Kindle formats, and there's if you invested in Nook and you've got a bunch of EPUBs, make sure you can read those on other devices. And but then there's all of us, or most of us, maybe not Antoine, but most of us are invested in Bible software, whether that's the Bible Reader from Olive Tree or Logos or Accordance or BibleWorks, and one of those, I won't name names, but one of those companies that I just mentioned even suggest, hey, we don't recommend having a big digital library because you may not be able to access it one day. And so that's kind of our first question: is it even a good idea to have a digital library? Because what if, in the year 2032, you try to bring up something that you paid good money for, maybe the Word Biblical Commentary or something, and you can't read it anymore because that platform is no more? Then what are you going to do?
You go to a pawn shop and buy a really old computer.
That's always one possibility.
There you go.
Anyone else?
No, I mean, I think one of the things, especially when you're buying modules for like a Bible software, you have to go into it understanding that partly what you're doing is you're buying the module specific to that Bible software. So you're buying into their feature set, their search criteria, that sort of thing. So you're not buying a platform neutral reality.
And you're not actually,
when you buy it.
And you're not actually buying the text. You're only buying a license to access the text.
Well, which is technically how the books work too. But
I was going to say that's how books work too, in the sense that you don't own that content itself. You just own that copy.
To me, the big issue is what the publishers would love is for me not to be able to pass on or allow anybody to inherit the library I build. They say, "Oh no, that's just licensed to you." Well, that's, to me, that's not kosher.
Yeah, and they would like that with print or digital, but
right.
That's the law says otherwise. I everyone before things began, what really turned me on this was Hurricane Katrina. Now, I've been using Bible software since I came across a journal that I wrote in college in 1989, where I was talking about how amazed I was with the first Bible software I'd ever used. It was the old online Bible that came on 5.25 floppy disk, and I was a bit worried because it took up an entire 3 megabytes on the 20 megabyte hard drive I had access to, which was large at the time. But what for the longest time I've used Bible software, and of course I've been invested in Accordance since 1998. But I'll tell you, for probably the first 8 years or so that I used Accordance, I had biblical text, and I had reference works, lexicons, that kind of thing. I never bought commentaries. I never bought any monographs or any of these other works. And I'll tell you what changed my mind. I'm originally from Louisiana. I spent the first half of my life in Louisiana. I was born there. And I knew people at New Orleans Seminary when Katrina hit in 2006. And the professors, if I understand this correctly, had their offices on the first floor.
Oh.
And in New Orleans, you know, what's called a basement apartment is really the first floor apartment. And so these, anything that was at that level just got completely wiped out. And I thought about this. I thought about, I've got, about 3,000 books in the other room over here. You spend a lifetime investing in all this stuff, and these things are important to you and whatever. And one natural disaster or one untended lit candle or something like that can wipe all of that out in a certain, and that was really a turning point to me, a process that I'm still on. I've weeded out hundreds of books, but and we'll talk about strategies for that kind of thing too in a moment. But that was really a turning point for me when I really started building a digital library. I now have more digital text than I have physical text, and it's true. It's true what I had discovered a long time ago, that once I have something digitally, I don't refer to the version that often. I can give you an example with like reference works. Once I had something like the BDAG lexicon, Greek lexicon in digital form, I never pulled that physical one off the shelf anymore. I mean, just why should I? And the same thing with commentaries too. When I finally did start buying commentaries, I never pulled the other ones off the shelf, and so I eventually sold them, and I still have a bunch more to sell too. But that was the turning point for me. And I mean, does anyone else have similar experience? Maybe you didn't get concerned about floods, but there was this, like I said, there was this change in the way I thought about these things after a while.
What for me, and I really do. I enjoy a good physical book,
Sure.
even though I end up reading more digital nowadays. But for me, it was more, I don't like clutter around me. It tends to get me very antsy, and trying to keep a book open on the right page, and copy down and then write and have it flip and then put it over there. And I know you can put weights on it, all that. It annoyed the living daylights out of me. And so, especially for something like a commentary, which a lot of them tend to be thicker and the font's really small, it just made more sense to me to buy it into Accordance or whatever I was using at the time, and then have it just sync with me, so it's just on my desktop and it's with me wherever I go. And to me, that's really the selling point, is it's something that's there with me, or if it's not with me, it's a matter of going a click and waiting for the thing to download, and then I have it with me. Whereas if I was out traveling and I want something that's sitting on my bookshelf up in my office, I got to go find it in my office, and then second off, I have if I'm 3 states away, I'm just screwed. So those are things that really began to push me towards more going into with open eyes, understanding that I'm buying into a platform more than I'm buying into a book. And that's for Bible software. Regular ebooks are a totally different matter for me. But that's what I went through. I want to understanding what I was doing when I was buying these things. And that's what people really have to.
Yeah, and for me too, it was like, I grew up in a military family. We moved just about, like, if not every year, every other year. And so for a good part of it, I never wanted to accumulate a lot of books because I didn't want to have to pack them up. And like, when you're packing stuff up, books are usually the heaviest boxes.
Yeah.
And so that was something I never wanted to do. And there was one point, even when I worked at WordSearch, we would get a lot of duplicates, and I would ask for it, and like, there's no use for it in the office, so they would give it to me. And and when I moved up here, it's like ended up giving a whole lot of them away. Well, actually not when I moved here, but when I moved to Charlotte, I just went to a used bookstore and sold them all. It's like, why? I've had them all digitally. I don't need a physical copy of them. I'm never going to look at them. They're just there for show, really.
But Laura, so that's something that I'm facing. There's a very good chance, in the next year or so, that Kathy and I will be moving, and I don't want to move all those books again. I remember when we moved where we are now, and I had some friends who I said, "Hey, can you come over and help me move a few books?" And it was really kind of a con because I had 3,000 books, in boxes. But I don't want to move 3,000 books again. I want to take care of that before that time comes. And the other thing that you mentioned, Wes, which I think is very, very true, that you talked about being able to access those books wherever you are. Today I'm sitting in Walgreens waiting on a prescription to be filled, and an accordance customer was asking me a question about Job in the Septuagint. I was able to pull up. Sounds real nerdy, I know, but I was able to pull that up, and that would have been an impossibility 15 years ago, or but I've got access to tens of thousands of titles just all on my phone.
So since I sit in slightly different bucket than you guys, and I say slightly because I was like you all. I had a library of books. So most of my books were of this ilk. This is actually one of the few books I still own. Frankly speaking, finding it is very freaking hard. That's not locked in somebody's software. But that was the potential issue that I ran into, is that there are some books that you want to have access to when the thought arises. When you think about, okay, I want to access this, I want to reference this particular item. There are other references that you need when you're in deep study. And for deep study things, paper books are perfect because they're going to live in a library, and not necessarily because they need to be backed up, but because they need to be in a place where contemplation is the first order of business, versus items that you need to refer to on a more frequent basis, or they would make more sense only being accessed and not necessarily owned. And so for that reason, I got rid of most of the books that I own. The only books that I own now, I own pretty much a half a container full of books. So it's not quite 50 of them. And those are all books that I refer to for personal reasons, for personal needs, or in the case of like this, I'm just not going to find it outside of certain software just yet. But if you're focusing on, in my case, I stopped focusing on things that I needed for deep study, and I needed things that I could access quickly. My stuff had to go digital, and the net just have to be digital. It had to be digital and as open access as possible. So to be locked in just one specific piece of software, whether that's Bible software or a specific reader, that didn't help at all.
Yeah, and Antoine, I understand your point. I mean, that's one of the things that I often have to make the mental choice, whether I'm going to buy a commentary in Accordance or whether I'm going to buy it off of the Barnes & Noble store or the Amazon store, because I can liberate those and read them on anything. But it's and a lot of times they're actually cheaper than buying the Accordance modules. But one of the things that I really like about having the integration is that it works into my workflow, and that's often part of the equation for me. And again, I go in that knowing, because I could have this, a book that I have that I can now move to whatever reader I want, as opposed to something that's locked into Accordance. And so that's something I knowingly do, and I think that's definitely part of the equation that people have to wrestle with.
What about Kevin? Do you want to try to gargle anything in here?
Tell me, am I darling?
You call me darling? What?
No, I did not call you darling, and I would.
Oh,
as much as your wife might think you are. Am I gargling right now?
Not at the moment, actually.
Well, that's because I've hooked up a different computer. You can see that I'm actually in the thing twice. One to screen share, and then this one just to do video and audio. let me just share a few things. Personally, I'm pro digital library. I don't read a paper Bible anymore. I mean, I have them and I keep them around and use them, but just for personal devotions, I haven't read one in years. When I moved from my previous church to this church, I gave away a lot of my books and kept just kind of ones that had more sentimental value, and then others that I don't have digital copies of. But let me just play a devil's advocate a little bit for you, and to say there's a few reasons why I think it's good to think about the books, and that is, number one is sharing. It's extremely difficult to share digital libraries.
Unlike in the days when you could just hand someone that 5 1/4-inch floppy.
Well, that's true, and there was lots of that going on. In fact, I often tell the story of a pastor who lied to me and said that PC Study Bible told him he could copy this and give it away for free. And then I began to review Bible software, and they sent me a copy to review, and I told them that, and they said, no, that's not true. I said, well, I have already destroyed those copies he gave me. But sharing a book is a thing that's been going on for hundreds of years, probably, and
thousands.
You can't do that digitally, right?
Unless you're doing Kindle.
Easily.
Well, or if you liberate your ebooks.
Well,
which may not be legal to share it.
This is true.
That goes into the legal piece of, are you paying for access or are you paying for ownership?
Right, but whether I'm paying for access or ownership, Barnes and Noble, not Barnes and Noble, well, Barnes and Noble maybe, but Harper Collins, they're not going to come after me if I start handing this book and you can borrow it, and then you can borrow it, and then you can borrow it, and pretty soon my entire church could have read the same copy of the same book.
Mm-hmm.
But if they got word that I was making digital copies and sending it to all of them,
they making photocopies, they would come after you.
Possibly. That's just one. And so I think people can see a value in that.
But I think what Kevin's saying, Antoine, is that when you hand a book, you're handing the actual physical object over. When you're handing data over, it's a different thing, because you are making a copy, and that's one of the things that has to go through. So and if you really want to treat it like a physical object, then you really have to walk on a strong ethical tightrope.
Because
you'll destroy this, and I won't read it, and that's
with a physical book, you can't both read it at the same time unless you sit very close to each other
or hand it back and forth.
Well, here's a second thing, and that is selling books. It's very easy for me to sell books and get money out of them when they're physical. When it's a digital, you have to, does the company that issued the book, do they have a system in place for that? Otherwise, they're probably doing it illegally. For example, I have a lot of Logos books, and I can contact Logos, and they will give me the right to sell you my Word Biblical Commentary if I wanted to sell that to you. Now, they would charge a little administrative fee. I hope no Logos does that. On Accordance side, how do you handle it, Rick? When someone
you have to contact the office. I don't think there's a fee. I mean, don't quote me on that yet. I haven't looked it up, but I've not heard of a fee.
I can tell you from experience, because someone sold me one of their starter collections before I really bought Accordance, and they just transferred it to me. They had to just go through a process.
Yeah.
No fee.
I just think the way to do that.
Olive Tree does not, but I know Word Search does.
Charge or allow you to sell books?
Word Search allows you to sell books. They don't charge a fee. Olive Tree does not do either one. They don't allow you to sell their resources.
Okay.
What about Amazon? Can you sell an Amazon title to someone else?
Allowed to resell books
with Amazon?
Nope.
What if I die?
That's the big question right now, Rick. Is that a lot of what Amazon and Nook would say, that the license is for you and you only.
But I imagine as long as my license is accessed and kept up to date with an email address,
it has
anyone could be me.
It has not been tested in court yet. But that's going to be the huge legal challenge
sure.
in the next 20
sure.
years, because if Amazon and if Barnes and Noble is even still around, which makes me sad because I bought a Nook, if they have their way, then your license dies with you, and
Well, it's
you
not even
cannot inherit things. But this
it's
is
not
also
so much them,
beyond
it's more
that.
the
It's also
publisher.
the same thing with social media networks, is they're also having that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much that the like Barnes and Noble or Amazon, it's more the publisher.
This is true, but Amazon anymore is becoming the publisher. So
it's sounding to me like all this digital stuff is a lot of trouble. Shouldn't we just stick with
just mention
books?
one more trouble, okay,
Oh yeah, tell me one more
that
trouble.
I've heard, and that is there are people who say, look, physical books are just easier to read. It's hard to read off of a screen and things like that. Well, I want to recognize immediately that's a personal preference, not an argument. Okay. Personally, I would prefer to read it on a lighted screen because I can read it at night without having to turn lights on while my wife may be sleeping or something like that. Now, I know in the daytime it's a little bit difficult depending on your device that you're reading from.
But Kevin, wouldn't you say that at one time, though, that was really legitimate? At one time, the screens weren't as high resolution. I mean, even if you had a Nook, the very first generation Nook,
it wasn't as
Nook,
pleasant.
I'm thinking
an
the Kindle. I
experience.
was thinking the Kindle, the first generation Kindle.
So slow
I thought
refresh.
that text is kind of blurry, but they really got it right with. I think this is just the second generation one that had that keyboard on it. That screen was good enough to read.
I think the
and of course iPads too
are great. In fact, my wife is reading off of a reflective, a lit screen, but she loves reading off of her Kindle. She reads.
I love it.
No, now I have a Kindle Fire, and I love reading on it. But I like to highlight stuff, and I like it faster, and so. But that is one of the reasons that a lot of people. So if we're trying to fairly present the opposite argument, even though none of us really agree.
Well, and there's also the whole thing of whether or not you can really access those files in a few years. And who remembers Pradis? And
that was our original question. Yeah, Pradis. Who? Gosh, LaRosa, who owned that company? Never mind. Don't say anything. Anyone who had Pradis, which is not being updated now because they're gone, maybe they have to go to that Goodwill store and get an old computer if they want to access those texts.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I was an owner of the Expositor's Bible Dictionary for Bible Commentary in Pradis, and was very disappointed when they quit updating. Of course, the software was always really bad, which is probably why they failed as a software.
Yeah,
and then even just going outside of Bible software, who remembers who has a VHS player anymore that works, or who remembers the battle between HD, DVD, and Blu-ray?
Well,
I do.
Covey Bibles, right? I mean, no one has those. No one
has what?
The Franklin Covey digital.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, those things. Oh man, those are awful.
I talked about in this journal entry in 1989 a Bible that I'd seen that it was about the size of a book, and you could put different modules for different translations of the Bible in it, and you were encouraged to take that to church. Probably none of those, and they were expensive. I think they were like $400 or $500. Which is just crazy.
So what Franklin Covey used to do, Franklin Covey actually used to transfer the license to whatever software platform you were on back when you had a PDA. Mm-hmm. So for Palm OS and Windows Mobile, they would actually transfer your license if you bought the software and could prove that you owned the hardware from that previous version. They honored that for a few years until pretty much most of their user base transitioned over. And so you usually see things like that happen where companies, if they go through it, Sony did the same thing with folks who owned Beta and went out and bought a VHS system by Sony, and they wanted to transfer things over. Laserdisc and a few other folks did stuff like that for a little while, but it's never very long.
I didn't know that, and that again is a reason against digital libraries, in that I bet very few people knew that, and so.
That's because most folks don't read the terms of service.
That's right.
but I can remember when there was probably, we could all start listing names if we wanted to. There's probably a dozen different Bible. If we're talking just Bible
And here he was
There-
bragging
sure.
about how he was going up.
There's about you froze, Wes, or I don't know, or you just got silent. There's about 4 left, and so with those 4, I mean, we're talking about combined millions of users, I assume, and my you don't want to say any company is too big to fail, but I would hope that there's enough momentum behind any of these companies. Number one, that they wouldn't fail, but if they did, that customer base would be valuable enough that one of the other companies would pick it up. That would be ideal. But my other thought for this is right now I need what I need. I want to use what I want to use. I can't worry about 20 years from now so much if this is extremely beneficial to me now, and frankly, after I die, I'm really not worried about it. For after I die, yeah, it'd be nice to pass that on, but that's not big on my agenda.
I'm
on my
always more
list.
concerned with my notes going forward than the library that I have. My notes.
Yeah,
the
me
commentary,
too.
those being in a format that are readable, whatever the technology changes into, is more important in my book than So things like my Kindle highlights and the notes that I write alongside those, I always make sure I export those to something that will last and is mine.
Yeah.
Everything should be in Markdown.
Well, I'm not going to do Markdown, but I understand your point. You know what I do think, and I do think that there are some computer formats that are safe going forward because they're standards. You could certainly say basic text files and Markdown. So Markdown would work for that for formatting, but also RTF I think is fine. And I even think you like it or not, I think Word documents are fine because from 2007 forward, when Microsoft published the specs of their Word documents and so forth, I think those are fine. I think PDF is fine. I don't think that we have to worry about any of those formats that I just mentioned.
Well, and you have
because
some
there's
things like
so
ODT,
much,
like anything that's an XML base.
yeah, anything that's XML based, yeah, because it's essentially text based at the
right
deepest level. Yeah.
So EPUB over Amazon Kindle books is what. So if I buy something on Kindle, one of the things I should do is turn it into an EPUB. I won't tell anybody how to do that.
Back it up to an EPUB, you would say.
Correct. I'm backing it up to an EPUB.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to keep in mind.
What are you using to back up into an EPUB, Wes? For those who are listening.
Am I legally allowed to say?
Yeah, I think
Search lifehacker.com.
Well, yeah, search Lifehacker, but I guess Macworld even published the article on this, so if they can do it, I can do it. It's I use the Calibre library system, and there's plugins you can get that'll allow you to convert.
I've got it.
And again, here's the disclaimer is I don't share these. I don't put these on the internet. I don't put them out for anybody. They're the books I bought, and that's it. So that's, I mean, because I'll have people ask me all the time, well, how do I do this? And I won't tell them because they want to do for movies, to rent a movie and get done. I'm going, that's completely unethical. You can't do that.
Well, and the other, I have scanned hundreds of books that I wanted to keep, but I wasn't sentimentally attached to the physical copy. And in fact, in many ways, it's more valuable to me scanned because, number one, I can upload that to the cloud in case of flood or fire. But also, in a good PDF reader, I can highlight that. I can add comments out to the side or whatever. And so I've done that with that. But here's the thing that I never, ever do. Like you just said, I don't ever share those. That is my copy here and forever. And that's not something. And I've had people say, well, I've had students say this because there was a particular textbook that a particular publisher would not. They weren't planning to come out with a digital copy, and so I took it down to Kinko's. had the spine taken off of it. I put it through my Fujitsu ScanSnap scanner that's over here beside me, and I digitized the whole thing. And I had a student say, that I have bought the book. You see the book right here, so why can't you give me a copy of your digitized version? I said, I'm sorry. I said, but you can do the same thing that I did.
And have fun.
Yeah.
And it's a digitized book is nice because I can search it. Like if you OCR those scans,
it's searchable, and there's even something to be said for layout. Occasionally, I like when layout is done really nicely. That's sometimes hard to duplicate digitally. Like with the Kindle format or even any of the Bible software, because those are all with good reason designed to where you can adjust the size of the font, and that's great. Purposes, but there's also something to appreciate about layout too, where it's been set up a particular way. Some books it matters, some books it doesn't, and that's nice to have a PDF sometimes.
Rick, talk about that process. I think maybe we should probably transition into this. We're already now talking about, going from format to format. Wes, you mentioned using the caliber thing, and now you're talking about going from physical to digital, which is a useful and worthwhile thing in my opinion, and I've begun doing that with some books. What's your process? You said you take it to...
Yeah. Well, let me even do the preliminary process, because I'm in the, no pun intended, I'm in the process of, I told you I didn't want to move all those books. And so I've got 3 categories for my books right now as I go through shelf by shelf at a time. There's keep. It's staying on the shelf because I want to know how many bookshelves I need to keep, because I'm going to sell bookshelves too, bookcases. But there's keep, and keep is for anything that has sentimental value. I'm not going to take my grandmother's Bible and scan it, right? And say, okay, I don't need the physical copy anymore. Sentimental value, or just really nice books. You need to have a physical copy of Lord of the Rings, right? So I've got that kind of stuff I'm keeping. Nice editions of books and so forth I'm keeping. But then there are some books that I don't want anymore, and I'm never going to ever read them in any circumstance. That's going into the sale box. I'm going to sell that book. But then there's that third category, which is the scan category. And so there are some books that I don't have sentimental value to them. They're not a premium nice edition, of some kind, and I'm content to scan that and then just what I do. You asked about my process. What I do is I take that book down to FedEx Kinko's, and they have a machine there that is designed to cut the spine off of a book. And normally every time I ever take books there, they'll ask, do you want this spiral bound? Because that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people take a book and they'll put a spiral binding on it so it'll lay flat. That's why cookbooks are done like that. That's why they come with spiral bindings, because our students will do that with textbooks. But I say, no, I just need it cut. And then they look at me weird. But I take that, and so I have a Fujitsu Scan Snap IX, I'm looking at it here, IX500 scanner. And I don't know the specs on this. You might be able to look it up, Kevin. But I can do an entire book, 200-page book or so in less than 5 minutes. And so what it does is it scans both sides at the same time, both sides of the page at the same time. I have it set to delete blank pages, although sometimes certain books if you want to have a 2-page view, you need to have them set up a particular way. But most of the time, I have it set to delete the blank page, and then after that comes through, it puts an automatic layer over it, meaning that it goes through and it recognizes the text. And the beauty of this is that the page layout still stays the same. It still looks like the original book, but you can do searches on it. That is something you cannot do. You cannot do with a regular book. And I don't think most people know this, but even books that have indexes, 99% of those indexes, I think maybe 100% of those indexes have been done by a human being determining what they think is an important word that needs to be indexed. Well, if you can search that text, you can search for every A, N, and D. You can search for phrases, and find that specific thing that you want. And so it's a wonderful tool. I mean, I have hundreds of these that are in. I use an app called Goodreader, and the on my iPad, the ScanSnap scanner came with software that's very good, and it's got the is it Abby Fine?
Yeah, Abby Fine Reader.
Yeah, Abby Fine Reader that comes with it. I also have a copy of the Adobe Acrobat Pro that will also do it. And sometimes if the Abby's not working, sometimes you'll get a book, and usually it's when the background is a particular color, something like that. If it's a dark color, if one of them has trouble, I can use the other one, and usually between the two of them, I can get that digitized. And you know, I throw away that original copy. Because there's really no reason for me to keep that around anymore. You know, technically you're not supposed to give it to anyone, so they
You
can
throw it away or recycle.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. I should say I recycle them. It's
He
paper.
debookifies it.
But yeah. I mean, it does not need to be in a format where it can still be used as a book. If I'm going to do this now, if I were to keep, I could if it was just going to be mine, I could do that. I don't want the space. I'm trying to get rid of some of the stuff that I've got, so that I'm not just moving it from one place to another. And so anyway, that's my strategy. Kevin, did I leave anything out of that? Because I know that you've done that too.
And if you don't have a printer that can, or a scanner that can do that, there were companies that'll do that. Because I know when I worked at WordSearch, we would do that. We would do the OCR in house, but we would send it off to a place in town that would cut the spine off and scan it and send us back both a PDF and TIFF files.
I've looked for my own paper cutter. You can get some pretty heavy duty paper cutters on Amazon, but I don't know that any of them are going to cut books really well.
Hey Rick, how big are the files when you get done all the OCRing and stuff?
Well, it's according to how high of a resolution that you want them. Let me look at a couple of books here real quick. Put them in Goodreader. Let's see. Okay, so this is an example. This is Blake's Almanac of the Christian World. That's 110 megabytes, which is really kind of large. I tend to use a higher setting. You really don't need it that high. I just like that higher resolution. Now there was a one of those $10 magazines that you see at the checkout counter. This was the best of Bond, like as in James Bond. It covered every movie, and so that's full color scan. That one's actually pretty high. That's 70. It's not as high as the other one. That's 77 megabytes. But now I'll tell you, one of those textbooks that I did years ago. In fact, I think it was. Let me answer your question directly. Most books, it's not necessary to make them more than 10 megabytes, and that's the truth. But I tend to do them a little bit higher. And one of those textbooks that I did a long time ago that had like 700 pages. This is the one that the company said that they were not going to ever digitize it. And I said, well, I'll just scan it myself. They said, oh no, we don't allow that. I said, okay. And then I did it anyway. But I needed it fairly high, and plus it was so many pages that I think that it was over 500 megabytes. I mean, it was a really big book, and I could have done it at a lower resolution, but I chose to do it higher, and that was when iPads were pretty new, and that's one thing that drove me to use the program Goodreader, the app Goodreader, because it could handle those larger files. Every other app at the time, I'm not saying they would do this now, but at the time, all the other ones crashed with that particular file, and Goodreader could use it. So that's what made me kind of stick with Goodreader.
On screen, can you see my screen right now?
Now we're looking at
if you click on it, it should override everything.
Okay. You see
Nope.
it?
Still looking at you.
Yeah, it didn't come up.
Well, I mean,
On me,
I see only my screen.
I saw your other one kind of blink there for a minute.
I don't understand why you're not seeing it, because that's all I see is I've got it clicked. So,
We don't see it. Tell us what you see, though. And
Okay.
we'll imagine.
well, I wanted you to be able to see a sample of a scanner from the scanner that you used, and so that's what I'm clicking on, and it's not showing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you click on it, it only shows for you.
Yeah, it only shows for you. You're not doing a screen switch, so that screen has to share.
It normally does, but I'm logged in twice because of my problems with my computer. So that's it normally works and works great, but tonight it's not working. Nothing's working for me tonight. Anyway, it's a pretty good scan. And you asked about file size. This is about a 100-page book. It's a Bible study, and it's a 23.5 megabyte file at 600
that's
by
kind of standard.
300.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to share is I'll put, since it's not showing on screen for you guys, there's a link to a tutorial on how to get books out of Logos and into Kindle. And it's actually in the Logos community forum, and so I guess Logos is not unhappy about this. In fact, Logos used to have a send to Kindle feature in their program, and the publishers all had a cow because they're all stupid old farts who don't understand the modern world. Anyway, don't tell your bosses I said that, LaRosa. The owner of the company. But
no, they're
anyway,
just trying to protect their intellectual property.
I understand, but they're wrong about their approach to it, so they shouldn't do that. Anyway, what it is there's a Kindle send to Kindle printer driver install on your computer, and as a result of that, you'll now have a printer driver. And so what this tutorial does is basically you copy all of the book into a Word document, and then there's a way in Word that you can very quickly and easily select all the settings so that you turn them into the right kind of heading. Not all the settings, all the headings. You can turn them into the right kind of headings that will then allow you to create a quick table of contents in the book.
Cool.
And after you're done, you send it to Kindle using the printer. Now this is designed, and we'll put the link in our show notes. This is designed to work with Logos, but you could use this with any content from any place.
That template will work with anything.
Yeah, as long as you get the text of the book out of whatever you're using, then you can.
To back up a step here, Logos, just like Accordance, just like Olive Tree, has mobile apps. So really the only reason that you would want to do this is if you want to get that book on an e-ink Kindle. I can't see of any other reason why you would want to do that.
Or if you wanted a DRM version of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you wanted, but I don't think that's why most people are doing. I think some people just.
I don't read on an e-ink Kindle. I just prefer reading books, not commentaries and reference books and stuff like that. I just prefer reading in the Kindle app on my Kindle Fire. It's just a more pleasant experience than reading it in Logos. Sorry, but in Olive Tree and in every other mobile app that I've got installed on my Kindle. I've got them there, but I just prefer the Kindle software. So that's why I choose to do it. And it's simple. It's quick and easy to do. And so I've got about, 6 or 8 books right now that I've converted, and I'm I just discovered how to do this recently, and so I've got a few right now. But I'm reading about 6 or 8 books in that way. And so, plus then later on, what you can do is you can go online to the web-based Kindle reader, and you can get some of your notes off of that and put them somewhere else if you'd like. So anyway, that's just a neat little strategy if you want to do that kind of thing.
There's let's see if I can get this on the screen. Similar to what you said, Chad, your print to Kindle made me think about this. I used this when I first got an iPod Touch like years ago, and this is called Act Printer, Virtual Printer, and it's actually still being updated. This allows you to essentially, you install a print driver on your PC or your Mac, and you print to your phone, and it converts it to a PDF. So if you ever want to, that's just another situation, similar idea, but you basically take whatever you're printing, and it prints it to that virtual printer and shows up as a PDF on your phone or your iPad. So it's an interesting idea. That's your print to Kindle made me think about that.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the flip side of this for a minute. Are there any times when it's better to read a physical book? And I'll start with my own example. Kevin, a while ago, you said that you rarely ever read or never read print Bibles anymore. You read them on. I would say I spend 95% of the Bible interaction I do is digital, but like for instance, there's a new translation, the Christian Standard Bible, which I have digitally. I have multiple copies of it digitally too. But wanting to just read through it, I've been reading the physical copy just to read through it. I've got a Psalter, where you can pray a Psalter, and I've been doing that. And then Wes, you and I have talked about this book, A Year with the Church Fathers. I've got that physically too. And one reason I do this kind of thing, but I like to do it with physical books, is I can put all my devices aside because I'm not overly self-disciplined when I have the device in my hand. I certainly text and Slack and email. I could turn it all onto no notifications right now while I do this, but I'm just not overly disciplined. And sometimes an idea will pop into my mind, and if I've got that device in front of me, I'll just immediately jump to that. And so what I've gone back to for this kind of stuff is because I was trying to do it digitally. I've gone back to these physical books and notice these are really nice editions of books too. I've come to appreciate that. I'm not into buying a bunch of physical books anymore, but when I do, I kind of like these nicer ones that have a leather or a faux leather cover. But often I'll sit with just a little notepad. So if I do have a thought that I want to look up later, I'll just write that down and I can go to it later. But that keeps me focused on right there in front of me, so that I'm not as easily distracted and I'm not trying to do half a dozen things at a time, because I do that the rest of the day. The rest of the day I am doing half a dozen different things at a time, and I can get sidetracked very easily, with that. But in these times I don't want to be. So anyway, that's when I'm still using physical books.
Yeah, there's some other advantages. Yeah, there's some other advantages too, especially with the Bible, is a lot of us think spatially. So when it comes to memorizing verses and things like that, there are verses that I've memorized like way back when.
And you can still see them on the page.
Yeah, I can still see them on the page in my old Bible that I no longer have. But yeah, it's like if you can keep that Bible around, then it's like exactly where that verse is, and you can go to it for reference. Where in digital, you totally lose that spatial feel. Well, and then also thinking about things like small groups where there are some people that have the print copy and you're sitting there with the digital, and they say go to page whatever, and that's somewhat hard to do in digital. Because they're hard.
Just give me the header and I'll search for it.
Well, see, so hold up. So that's actually, and I've actually had to talk with the Bible study group about this, because about a third of us are using Kindles or something similar to read the book, and then the rest of us are using print. But instead of saying go to a page, to actually get used to saying exactly what it is that you're referencing.
Yep.
Which gets us actually into the way we mnemonically used to, and I say but the way cultures used to remember text. We didn't remember from a page or a verse number, but we remembered from what it actually said. So, when we hear Jesus didn't say, go to Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. That's what I'm going to quote from right now. He says, it was written. And
the prophet said,
because you read the whole, it was written.
But so that works well, though, when you're talking about a group that you have interaction with. But if you're sitting in a class or a seminar or even in a I can't think of other places, but places where someone's lecturing and you can't stop them and say, hey, can you please tell me, that works well in those kinds of situations, but not in that second kind where.
Yeah, but part of me is wondering if you're in a lecture situation, if the lecturer says turn to page 24, I think the lecturer might be doing it wrong.
Well, but many lecturers do it wrong, promise you.
Yeah.
But they were doing it wrong.
The other side of that, though, is that most of my digital texts have page numbers now. I can go to a particular page number.
Accordance and Olitree, I think, does Olitree have them? I know Logos has them.
Yeah, you can go. I can.
Nope.
I can
and I'm fighting tooth and nail to never put page numbers in there unless they are already in the file.
Well, see, we had to do it for that very reason. Like you said, the professor will say, we may not like it, but that's still how a lot of stuff is run. And so if we want to have textbooks, that are used in classrooms digitally, we had to include those page numbers, and also for citations.
Well,
When
citations is a big thing.
when you cite something, you have to have that page number.
Amazon,
And so we
Amazon
added
tried to rewrite that, and they tried to redo that when they initially came out with the
Kindle location. Yeah.
They did location number, and the location number was actually really ingenious on their part because it was it was latitude, longitude of where.
Right.
That's all great and good if you got a professor who's willing. But
Well, I mean,
I have my son went to a school, and they had a guy who was older in the hills, and I can guarantee you if he had come in with a paper that said Kindle location number, he would have said, "Fail, plagiarism, you didn't properly cite it."
Oh, that's been rewritten.
I would be taking that to the dean.
Yeah, it's cool.
Let's go talk to the provost.
When he took this guy to the dean, so to speak, a few times, the dean was like, "Well, he's an old guy. He deserves our respect." So.
Deserves respect.
And I'm not staying at that school. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, that's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
When you've got your whole life, for the last year and a half wrapped up in it, and you're only 2/4 away.
Again, that's why I like with the concordance didn't always have page numbers with stuff, but we began adding them because of citation, because of group use, where someone's going to say, someone who has a physical copy can't say turn to Kindle location. So someone who has the physical copy is going to say turn to page 32. And so if you choose to use a digital text, you've got to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
Anybody have a favorite thing?
So backwards. I'm just holding my.
Antoine, you have a favorite thing. Show your favorite thing and calm down.
I think Rich got one too.
I have one too.
I'm going to de-favorite a thing. Just let me really quickly de-favorite my thing. I sold my Google Home. When I first got it, I was recommending to you guys, don't bother with Google Home. What an absolute joke that thing is.
We need to link to that tweet in the show notes.
If you got a Google Home, it's very likely that you probably also have an Android phone. Use your Android phone as your Google Home. It's so much better. And
ouch.
Hey, Kevin, you need to link to that tweet in the show notes.
Oh my gosh, that thing was hysterical.
It's funny. But especially if you are using a apps for your domain account, basically the Google Home is useless if you have one of those. And it'll search things, but get the Amazon Echo. And what's cool is the Tap now has live. It'll listen live all the time. So I've got it on my. I don't know if I can get this in front of the screen.
I still don't understand.
Sitting on the charger all the time because it's battery powered. I have it sitting on the charger all the time unless I want to carry it off somewhere in the other part of the house. And so the battery issue of it listening all the time isn't a problem. Now the NSA listening all the time might be a problem.
That's what I think. I think it's funny that that's a feature. Yes, Amazon listens to you all the time now. Oh, okay.
The Alexa does it as well. So
I know, which is why I don't have either of those things.
Well, I don't care. All right, so I'm sorry. So I was de-favoriting a thing. So go ahead, Antoine.
So favorite thing number one on my end, I got a Kindle Paperwhite, and so I decided some time ago that I felt like reading. I wanted a quieter reading space, and while I've been using my Yola tablet for reading, I did not feel like reading from a backlit screen. So I went for the Kindle Paperwhite, which I'm very much enjoying right now. Mostly because this is not necessary.
Yeah.
I have charged it exactly one time in the 2 weeks that I've used it, and it still has 80% battery going with it.
Yeah, you'll forget where you put your charger when you need to charge it. That's what used to happen to me.
I'm really looking forward to picking up one of those.
I have USB outlets everywhere with stuff plugged in. But the other thing that I purchased along with this was a manuscript Bible. So going with our theme today, ESV Reader's Bible, which while I can debate yay, nay on whether the ESV is a good reader's version, it's one of the few versions that you can find available that does not have verse numbers available with. Is very, very, very useful when reading the text and wanting to get the full context. of what you're reading. So I'm literally reading the Bible right now like I would read a book, which has been very absolutely pleasant.
Antoine, both of those examples you gave, both that ESV Reader's version as well as the Kindle Paperwhite, that's doing the same kind of thing I was talking about, in a sense that you're removing some of those distractions, right?
Yeah.
Some of those electronic distractions.
In some respects, yes. I already have a pretty good practice of I don't read email before 9 a.m. I try not to pick up my phone before 8 a.m. My phone's usually on the other side of the apartment. My iPad Pro's on the other side of the apartment. My Kindle actually goes beside beside my bed. And
you are a more disciplined man than I am.
Yeah, my only electronics in my room are my ring, because that gets charged every few days, and my watch, because that's my alarm clock.
I'm looking at emails on my phone before I get out of bed in the mornings.
Yeah, Rick, one of the things that I did as a Lenten discipline a couple of years ago, and just picked up and continued with it, is that I said the first thing I'm allowed to do on an electronic device in the day, other than turning off my alarm, is doing my devotional reading for the day. So I have my olive tree reading plan is literally, that's the first thing I'm allowed to do on a day. I don't do anything else on an electronic device until that's done.
Yeah, I guess some of it is, job responsibilities.
Yeah, because you need to catch up real quick.
Sometimes, because we have employees all over the world, and sometimes I need to go put out a fire or something like that, and
Yep.
and it's just better for me to know it before I go get a shower, get dressed. It's an hour later, and I could have taken care of a lot if I just done that first thing, and it saves me a headache. But that's not the average day.
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing right now on the Paperwhite that I don't have going on there right now that I'll figure out eventually. I wanted to move my RSS feeds that I have on my Yola tablet over to the Paperwhite. Few services, most of which are dead, in order to pull that off. But that is the only and really one Evernote notebook. If I could get that Evernote notebook working, I could care less about the RSS.
Tell me this, Antoine, because this was true for me when I had a Kindle, e-ink Kindle, and also when I had an e-ink Nook. I tended to read more from that device than what I read from a backlit screen. For one thing, it was a small size. I could always have it in a jacket pocket, but I tended to bounce from one book to the next. So I'd finish one, I'd go right into the next one, because I don't know, there was something about the form factor, about the screen, to just eventually get another one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely doing deeper reads. I have a few PDFs loaded. So, for example, I'm reading a report from the World Economic Forum. What else am I reading? I'm reading a few dozen things right now. Screw tape letters, Reader's Bible, and probably 10 other things. Complacent class. How can education technology foster stuff? So I'm doing deep reads. The intention is so that I can go ahead and do deep reads without my eyes getting as weary.
Yeah.
So they do get weary, not as weary on the iPad Pro, but obviously it's a big device. It got weary to an extent on the Yola. However, the battery for the Yola was very not helpful. It's a development device. Its battery gives me maybe 3 hours of work before it decides to call it quits. And so that's not very helpful when you're trying to do a deep read on a Saturday morning, amongst a cup of coffee.
And
so it was good for that.
I'm still tempted to get one of those e-ink Android tablets off the Alibaba website and just see what some of these other apps would look like on there, but I haven't done that yet.
They might be okay. The refresh rate of this is pretty darn good. I don't have any real complaints. I guess I'm hitting the screen now. Am I hitting the screen? So it's pretty fast refresh rate. It doesn't really.
It's a little different though, because there's not a lot that you're drawing on the screen for that. For an Android thing, it's going to be a terrible experience. It'll be interesting.
I'm not worried about video. I'm not worried about. The browser is actually, apparently they updated the browser. They got something WebKit and Java flowing behind the scenes there. So it's actually pretty speedy. But you know, for the most part, it is what it is. It's a Kindle. I probably could have went with the regular 6-inch Kindle, but I wanted the higher points per inch of the Paperwhite. That seems, and that was recently updated. Well, last year updated to a better screen, better contrast ratios, not a lot of light bleeding. So it's a really good device, and you might catch it on sale again. I just missed it by a day. It was on sale for $100, so I ended up paying $120 for it. So it's pretty good. And the other thing I got is this. And so Kevin talked about his Amazon Tap, and I went to the whole other side. This is an Amazon Basics speaker. It's all of $20, but what it is connected to my Echo, which update came out a few weeks ago that Amazon updated their Echo's Tap, the Dot, with the ability to connect to Bluetooth speakers. So I now have Echo playing in other rooms now, which is very nice, very nice. So for $20, I got a second Echo, so to speak.
And can you talk to it? And I mean, will that hear your voice, or do you still have to be in the room with the Echo?
The Echo itself hears the voice. The microphone's on the Echo, so not on this speaker. This was just the Amazon.
That's what I meant. Yeah, but you can
I'm
always
sure
use
probably more expensive one would, but I wasn't too worried about that. It's good sense of rechargeable battery. It sits in the corner. It uses the same charger as my Kindle.
Very nice. All right. Well, I've got a favorite thing too, Kevin. It looks like maybe you have that screen. If not, I can share my screen. Or did we lose Kevin? I don't know.
I'm here.
What are y'all seeing? Oh, okay, you're here.
I've got
there
it,
it is.
but it's not working for some reason. So.
What's not working?
Can you see the camera?
Yeah. When you talk, when you talk, I can see it, but when I'm talking, I can't see it.
Okay, so the ability to select either isn't working because I signed into 2 accounts.
Let me just share my screen.
That feature, so
pulled up. Let me just share my screen. We'll do that, and boom. Okay, so you can see my screen, I assume. This is the Logitech C922X ProStream webcam, and that's what everyone's been viewing me on tonight. It's my first time to use that, but I'm using my MacBook Pro more often now, connected to a monitor. Kevin and I both have the same monitor. It's this HP 27WM. It's a really nice 1080p monitor, but by doing that, and I had my laptop closed, I didn't have access to a camera. So I looked into them and I chose this one. This one is actually better than the camera on my MacBook Pro anyway, because there is a it's a 1080p camera as opposed to a 720 that's on the MacBook Pro. And I should have had this open.
Can you all still hear him?
No, I lost him.
Oh, what about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's weird. It sounds like maybe, did you lose me when I brought up that app? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I don't know what caused. Anyway, probably because there are sound controls in this camera. But anyway, this little app will do some advanced things. I don't really use that much. I mainly like tonight, I'm using my Yeti mic here, but the camera itself is great. And it will do wide angle, and again 1080p at 30 frames per second, or 720 at 60 frames per second. And so I've been very impressed with it. I've got it sitting kind of below this monitor, as opposed to on top of the monitor, so I'm not looking up at it all the time. But I've been very pleased so far. In fact, I'll be interested to go back and look at the recording of this, which I'll do as soon as we're through, or tomorrow sometime. About $94.
Cool. All right, I got my favorite thing. I'm going to go with the theme of the night. This is
The Hobbit is the theme of the night.
Well, no, the printed books is the theme of the night. You were talking about getting good books and having heirlooms. I got this copy of The Hobbit when I was in 6th grade.
Ah,
so this is.
I've still got my 6th grade Hobbit too.
This is the one I read to my daughter. So this is a meaningful book that I would hold on to. So
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
the
my
same
favorite
way.
thing. So I still hold on to this thing. So
Hobbit too, which I would also hold on to.
yeah. So that's very simple. So there's something to be said for physical books.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
would like to just recommend the CSB that you were talking about, the CSB earlier.
Yeah, right here.
I think it's a good update, and you can get it for free if you already own it on Logos, Word Search, Olive Tree, Accordance. Actually, Word Search is going to give it away to everybody for free. You don't have to even own HCSB, the Holman Christian Standard Bible. If you're a Word Search customer, you're going to get it free. And I don't know about PC Study Bible or Luridian Pocket Bible or.
There's also a free app from
free app if you
Lifeway.
want to download it. It's not a very good app, but you can at least read it. So I think that's cool, and I like.
It's a good translation.
You may have to call Olive Tree and ask them, or contact their support and ask them to add it to your account. There's no
I think
way
it's
to.
automatic.
Well, it may be now, but it wasn't as of days ago.
Well, I went. Don't tell my boss, but say I went on to Olive Tree and I ordered it, even though I already had it in Accordance. It was just kind of an OCD thing. I had to have it everywhere, and so I at first I 9, and then they contacted me and said, "We're giving you this money back," and so they sent me cash in the mail. No, they refunded my American Express, and so I think you probably you may still have to. Well, why am I telling you this? Rosa should be telling you. And where did he go? So I'll speak for him.
He had to drop off.
Pretend I'm Rosa. Well, I think like with all of these companies, you still have to go in and you still have to order it. But if you own it previously, it's free. Should be.
And just tell me who got that thing to digital first. I don't know which one of the Bible software.
That was Accordance. That was during the launch week because it was
big win. I wish that I could have read it on my Android device. That would have been really nice.
There's probably 2 or 3 Android devices in existence that you could read it on in Accordance, but those aren't wild.
Well, as long as it's Chromebook compatible, that's what I will be most concerned about. So
I'm pretty sure it will be.
Good. And it'll be out. What's the exact date?
The exact date is I don't even know
in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. In the future.
Well, hey, it's been fun.
Okay.
Well,
even though I started it, why don't you lead us out, Kevin?
Okay. Since I'm not gargling anymore while I speak, I spoke too soon. Thanks for watching. We're going to be done. Go to theotek.com and find different ways to listen. You can listen there or watch there through a YouTube link. And if you would like to subscribe in iTunes or other fine podcast software, you can listen to it. And but if you're watching us on YouTube, definitely please subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you want the link to that, again, go to theotek.com, and that's the easiest way to find the link to our channel on Theotek. If you search on YouTube for Theotek, if you don't spell it right, you get some singer, a rap singer somewhere, who also calls himself Theotek with a CH. And I don't understand why he uses that.
Now here's a real irony. The Theotek guy with the CH did a review of Accordance.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding. I'm serious. On the website.
Really?
And that was so confusing. Yeah.
How about that? Well, I didn't know about that guy when we picked the name and registered the domain and began to podcast until
we'll just wait him out.
Later on,
we'll have to get him on the show at some point. This is Theotek on Theotek.
Accordance. Maybe we can have Theotek on Theotek.
He lives in another country.
Well, I don't care.
I don't care. But it might be like the other time of night.
Well, that's true.
We already have the Rosa on the other side of the country.
That might work if it's daytime. I don't remember where he lives, but it is in another country.
Well, this has been fun, guys, and we hope that you'll join us again each time that we do this. But for now, we are going to go ahead and say thanks for watching or listening, and good night.
Night-night.
Good night.